Despite all of my critiques of Animal Crossing New Horizons, I have to admit something. I'm not an OG Animal Crossing player. Yeah, I haven't actually played the original Animal Crossing on the GameCube or even Wild World on the DS. But I have heard so many good things about the original GameCube game that I decided to actually play it. And as someone who hasn't really seen the true personality of the original game, I think I might actually be angrier now at Animal Crossing as a series than I ever was before I played the GameCube game. Let me explain. As it has aged, the Animal Crossing franchise has morphed itself into one of the most popular and recognizable franchises Nintendo has in their arsenal. And certainly their most popular franchise that doesn't really have a main original protagonist. Despite its many critics, it's a game series that looks likely to receive more attention in the future than a lot of Nintendo's IPs. Rest in peace, F-Zero. At least you got a killer track in Mario Kart 8. And the start of the franchise was really no different, as despite the original Animal Crossing game selling 2.7 million units, which, I mean, doesn't sound too much in today's market, it was the most successful original IP the GameCube ever produced. It is the 7th most bought game on the GameCube, with the 6 spots above it being sequels, spin-offs, or just new games in pre-existing franchises. That's very impressive for a debuting franchise. Despite this great achievement, Animal Crossing GameCube is the least played Animal Crossing game, if you don't count Amiibo Festival. Why would you count Amiibo Festival? But if anything, that has shown the true success of the series. A game franchise that grows in numbers over time is always healthy. My first Animal Crossing game was New Leaf, and a lot of people in the comment section of my New Horizons video said that New Horizons was their first game in the series. So a lot of people who are actually fans of the franchise now haven't really gone back to play the original game. Well, I want to share what all of those people and myself had missed out on. Based off of my first impressions, this game surprised me a lot. I really like Animal Crossing as a series. Moving to a new, humble town in each game was always an interesting concept to me. As a child, I knew I had a little bit of social anxiety. I just didn't know what it was and didn't know there was a term for it. I was always shy around new people and even sort of shy around people I knew. And something that helped me with this was playing New Leaf, as it always seemed like a place where I could learn new things to say to people in real life. But at the end of the day, it also had cool things in it too, like the neat chores you could do and all the great gifts you could receive. They always gave you a reward for playing the game and spending time with your virtual furry friends. It also taught me a lot about fish and insects, which I wasn't expecting when I was buying the game. But it's awesome how much you can learn from this game. But that was the Animal Crossing that I grew up with. Animal Crossing on the GameCube is mean as hell. I swear, a lot of these villagers have such high and mighty opinions about themselves. Some introduce themselves in such a mean-spirited way that I actually couldn't believe what they were saying back to me. As the game starts, we meet Tom Nook, and let me tell you, this Tom Nook and the modern Tom Nook are two different people, completely different, 100%. New Horizons Nook is kind, he's considerate, and although still being slightly monetarily driven, he looks out for people and even creates a fake currency you can pay off your first house loan with. Like, who? That's not a bad thing to do. That's a very generous thing to do. You're giving somebody a free house, basically. That's like the opposite of stingy. He still cracks slight jokes at you, but is never directly or intentionally mean. The Tom Nook in the GameCube game, I feel like he could call me a slur and I wouldn't be surprised. One of the first things he does is actively laugh in your face at how broke you are when you arrive to the town. He forces you to work part-time at his store to pay off your mortgage, and even when you do finish your part-time work at his store, you still get laughed at because you've barely put a dent in your mortgage payment. This leads me to my first point in this video, the social part of this social simulation game. If you've only played New Leaf or New Horizons, you won't actually believe the tone shift that these villagers have had. One of my villagers, Boris, called me a foul creature. Word for word what he said to me. I'm not making that up. You can go watch my Let's Play on this game. He said that. Another villager, Jane, mentioned that she thought I was hitting on her. No. I hate phrases like "you couldn't get away with it these days," but like, you would never actually see this in any modern Animal Crossing game. There are obviously nice villagers too. Sally the squirrel is an absolute queen because she stands up for me all the time, and I appreciate that. She's the only one that has any empathy in this town. But these nice villagers, I think, feel better to talk to in this game over New Horizons and New Leaf, for example. Why is that? Why do the nice villagers in the original feel much better than the nice villagers in New Horizons? I think the biggest factor for this is the mean villagers. In New Horizons, everyone is nice to you, so none of them feel like they're actually your friend. Like, if everyone's nice to you, nobody's like out of their way nice to you. If everyone is nice to you, it's hard to like any one individual over any others. In the GameCube game, the mean villagers give you a reason to like the nicer villagers more. These mean villagers aren't terrible people, they're just often selfish, snobbish, and sanctimonious in nature. Look at me using the big words, wow. These grumpier villagers could actually make you more determined to win them over as well, giving you an actual reason to talk to them, and by giving them gifts, for example. It made me feel like I had to prove myself to these villagers, rather than just being accepted as God Almighty. I honestly just really like the writing and scenarios in this game too. Whenever you get a fetch quest from a villager, they can sometimes just send you on a wild goose chase around the town from one house to another. Boris, for example, right? Boris wants his handkerchief back, so I go to Jane to get it back. Jane had to give it to Winnie, so then I go to Winnie's house, and then Winnie says that she gave it to Jay, so then I have to go to Jay's house, and then I finally get the handkerchief from Jay, so I have to run back to Boris to give it to him. I didn't even notice this at the time of when I was playing it, but getting the player to go from one house to another house to another house accomplishes two big things. For one, it gives the player a reason to talk to multiple villagers and to figure out everyone's personalities. For a person who is playing the game for the first time, partaking in these fetch quests gives the player a sense of the personalities each villager possesses. Since the game introduces this as a way of earning rewards, players are likely to do it often at the start of the game since their resources are very low. I just think that's cool game design. The second thing that all of this accomplishes is making you familiar with your town layout. You have to run from one house to another constantly, whether it be delivering packages or finding borrowed items somewhere. You are constantly moving around this new environment. And what's the best way to learn about the environment you're in? Is to just keep walking around it. It's a good way to learn the layout of your town. You also get a map given to you by Tom, but like, I only really used this when I got lost on my own after trying to find my own ways around the places, and just I got completely lost like 3 times on my first episode of my Let's Play, but like, it's fine because I got the map eventually. And over time, I used this map less and less because I became more familiar with my directions, mostly because I was doing things for other villagers. Okay, I'm sorry that I keep mentioning New Horizons. It's not a video about New Horizons. I made a whole 44-minute video on New Horizons. You can go watch that. But I'm not saying that this is missing in New Horizons or anything. I don't really think this was completely needed in New Horizons, because you can terraform land and rivers, and the game gives you a map whenever you stop walking, so it wouldn't make sense in this game. But I also found it's not just Tom Nook that's meaner in this version. Surprisingly, the Able sisters, Sable and Mabel, are noticeably different in the way they talk to each other. When I tried to talk to Sable, she just politely asked Mabel if she could assist me instead, and then Mabel's response was, I'm busy too. Mabel, are you really certain about that? Because all you do is run around after me. I don't think you're really busy at the moment. Her facial expression and the way she said it was so bizarre to me, because my entire life, 2,000 hours of combined New Leaf and New Horizons, I knew Mabel and Sable as these cute, wholesome, nice people that wanted to help you no matter what. And then I go to this game, and about 20 minutes in, they're mean to each other. I wasn't expecting that. And yes, I've played 2,000 hours of nice, wholesome Animal Crossing New Leaf and New Horizons. This GameCube game, was such a tone shift, and I absolutely love it. Because when I see stuff like this in games, I love it. I live for a little more edge to the personalities of anybody in a game. Especially the hedgehogs, because I think they've got lore, right? They've got a bit of lore and backstory to them. It would make sense if they actually bounced off each other a little bit more. That's just my opinion, though. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, that's about it for the personalities and the writing. I do want to talk about how the town actually looks. There's a lot of empty space for trees and flat ground, and for a quaint town in the middle of nowhere, I think it's perfect because you're moving into a countryside. Of course, there's going to be empty spots of land and patches of grass everywhere and stuff like that. One thing I completely forgot about was the jail. The jail is in this game, and the dump was also an interesting but similar concept to the jail. I don't know how I feel about the dump because it's basically the same as the jail. You just find items that you don't own but now own, if you know what I mean. I think the jail has a bit more personality to it with the two cops being around the place. I can't believe the jail didn't return in New Horizons though. It could have had great new uses. Anyway, I'm going on a New Horizons tangent again, god damn it. Because you can't terraform anything, you must get familiar with the town you start with, and I found it quite fun to just wander around, shaking random trees and learning the natural design of the town. I quickly fell in love with the way the landscape flows and rises in this game. It has a lot more charm to it than it does to the likes of New Leaf, for example, where that's all just one flat surface raised above a beach. I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but the cliffs give the map a lot more spice and flavour to it. They also kind of help me with directions, so that's cool. The bridges are in this game too, and there's nothing too unique about them. They're identical to the ones found throughout the series. I am so glad they have the post office here though. You can't have a cozy life sim game in the countryside without sending letters to people. Everybody knows that. I know it doesn't serve anything interesting, but I think that's kind of what brings the charm to these places. Pelly is working a job to get by, and despite how convenient a stand for postcards is in New Horizons, I'll always prefer the personality of a post office. The other main ingredients of a good Animal Crossing game are all here too. Paying off your debt, decorating your house, yada yada yada. It's a very testing but somehow stress-relieving game that other games in the series don't capture as well, in my opinion. When moving in, your only real stressor is working for Nook, and that barely takes up as much time as I thought it would. Like, I was genuinely shocked when he said, your part-time work's done. I thought I'd be doing it for like a week or something. I also got to talk about the music real quick, because that is one of the most calming aspects of Animal Crossing. It has to be its music and its general audio design. Because New Horizons' lackluster tracks have really bored me in that game. Like, I'm sick of hearing them, really. I was very happy to hear tracks I was actually vibing with, and I would constantly hum or scat along with just some of the midday tracks. They were very fun. It's cool that this series has perfected its music in the very first game in the franchise. I mean, I can't be too surprised, Nintendo are sort of known for that. I think the music is a core part of the Animal Crossing franchise, and the first game really does not disappoint in that regard. On screen now are some of my favourite tracks in the game, but I like most of them, and I've used them throughout this video, so you've probably already heard them. They do make for great background music for when you're running from Boris's house to Jay's house to Carmen's house to Winnie's house to Sally's house. But the biggest thing I loved about this game is absolutely its dialogue, but it did make me kind of sad. Because on one hand, you have an original game that begins on the GameCube that has exceptionally written scenarios, great character building and world building, and it is stacked up to the nines with personality and charm. Yet as the series has progressed, that part of itself has sort of faded a bit. The franchise started as a social simulator, a game where you live in a small neighborhood and play every now and then relax or kill some time in. It's just a calm little game. It's nothing too serious, it's nothing too stressful. It's got a lot of charm and it's got a lot of personality in it, and that's kind of what you need in a social simulator game. Is it a perfect game? No, absolutely not. I still think all these years later that not being able to change your skin color, that's like ridiculous. That is stupid. It has flaws like every game does, but its main identity is perfectly crafted, and that's why fans of the series have particular animals they love and remember from their childhoods. And that love often stems from earlier games in the franchise like GameCube, Wild World, Let's Go to the City, sometimes even New Leaf. Whereas the likes of New Horizons, I don't think anyone really found their favourite villager from New Horizons. You may say, oh, it's because everybody's already played the earlier games, so they already have their favourites. That's not really completely true. New Horizons sold more than all of the other games combined, so there's obviously going to be a lot of new people. And I don't know if they really got attached to these villagers because of their personalities or because of their looks. Raymond, I don't mean to bring up Raymond again, this is 2 Animal Crossing videos in a row, but Raymond, whenever I see somebody say, oh, I liked Raymond in New Horizons, he was my favourite, I start to ask, is that because he's designed well, or is it because of his personality? And the answer is never his personality, it's always because he is designed well. Now, he is designed well, I'm not denying that, but The personality of these villagers should come before the actual visual design of them. I always have the opinion that a brilliantly written game will last way longer in the memories of people than anything else. Interesting situations or catchphrases or just humor can create far more charm in a game than any amount of new features could, especially in Animal Crossing, a game where you talk a lot. I'm not saying that games like New Horizons have badly written villagers, but they don't have the personality that they used to. In fact, they removed so much personality. Rossetti's just gone from Rossetti's not in New Horizons one bit. He never makes a physical appearance. He's reduced to a voice, and that's just sad. That's really sad. Rossetti is one of the most infamous characters in Nintendo history, mostly because of his fourth wall breaks and his ability to make children weep and sob. I really don't think Animal Crossing needs to make kids cry, but the game's villagers are they're just boring right now. They really are just boring. Even people who liked New Horizons have said the villagers are their least favourite part of the game. Whereas in Animal Crossing Gamecube, the villagers are the game. They breathe so much life into the world of the game that it's impossible to have a good Animal Crossing game without these villagers. In Animal Crossing Gamecube, if you take away the villagers, you take away the game. And in all honesty, that's the way the game should be made. Now, I'm no professional psychologist, but I think there has to be something about how real the villagers are in the original game. I genuinely wanted to keep talking to everyone I bumped into, which never happened to me in New Horizons or even New Leaf, and that's why I titled this video as such. Because as much as I love the original GameCube game, I know that Nintendo are very unlikely to go back to the franchise's roots and tamper with a game series that has just printed them money in the last 4 years. They will try new things in the future, they might even try to reinvent the game with new mechanics, but the core of Animal Crossing doesn't seem to be on the agenda to change. And I doubt we will see anything better than what we got in the very first game the franchise ever created. But if we do, I'm first in line, baby. I can't wait for Boris to talk smack to me. Thank you to user ZS for joining the channel. Your support really means the world. If you'd like to consider supporting the channel, press the join button. It'll show you all the perks for each tier. Thank you for watching.